Captain John "Mad Jack" Churchill stood on the beaches of Norway, his longbow slung across his back and his Scottish broadsword gleaming in the pale Arctic sun. The year was 1941, and while the rest of the British Army carried rifles and grenades, Churchill had other ideas about how a proper officer should go to war. His men thought he was insane. The Germans would soon learn they were right. As the landing craft hit the shore at WWII, Churchill leaped out first, his sword raised high, bellowing a war cry that could be heard over the roar of gunfire. Behind him, confused commandos watched their commanding officer charge toward a German position armed with a weapon that hadn't seen serious combat in centuries. One soldier turned to his comrade and asked, "Is he always like this?" The reply came with a weary sigh, "You haven't seen anything yet." Born in Hong Kong on September 16, 1906, John Malcolm Thorpe Fleming Churchill was the son of a British civil servant posted to the Far East. From an early age, Jack, as his family called him, showed an independent streak that bordered on the rebellious. While other boys his age played cricket and studied Latin, young Churchill was learning archery and dreaming of medieval battles. After graduating from the Royal Military College at Sandhurst in 1926, Churchill joined the Manchester Regiment and was posted to Burma. But peacetime military service bored him. The rigid structure, the endless drills, the absence of real danger, it all felt suffocating to a man who craved adventure, like others craved air. In 1936, he did the unthinkable. He resigned his commission. For the next few years, Churchill lived the life he'd always wanted. He worked as a male model in London, appeared as an extra in films including The Thief of Baghdad, and became an accomplished bagpipe player, even competing in the World Bagpipe Championships. He traveled to India to perfect his archery skills, becoming so proficient that he once won a military archery competition by placing all 6 arrows in a 5-inch circle at 30 yards. But as the storm clouds of war gathered over Europe in 1939, Churchill knew his wandering days were over. When Britain declared war on Germany, he immediately rejoined the army, requesting assignment to the newly formed commando units. These elite forces were perfect for a man of his temperament, unconventional, dangerous, and operating outside normal military protocols. His superiors weren't sure what to make of him when he showed up for his first briefing carrying a longbow and a basket of arrows. One colonel reportedly asked, "Lieutenant Churchill, are you aware this is the 20th century?" Churchill's response was characteristic. "Sir, any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." Churchill's first major action came in May 1940 during the Battle of France. Near the village of Lepanet, his unit was tasked with ambushing a German patrol. While his men prepared their rifles, Churchill nocked an arrow, drew his bow, and waited. When the Germans appeared, Churchill's arrow flew through the air, striking a German sergeant in the chest. The man fell without a sound, the last soldier in the European theater to be killed by a longbow and arrow, a distinction that would find its way into history books decades later. The ambush was successful, but France was falling. Churchill and his men evacuated from Dunkirk, along with hundreds of thousands of other Allied soldiers, retreating to Britain to regroup and prepare for the battles ahead. By December 1941, Churchill had been promoted to captain and was leading commando raids along the Norwegian coast. It was during Operation Archery, the raid on WWII, that his legend truly began to take shape. As his men stormed ashore, Churchill stood at the front of the landing craft, playing March of the Cameron Men on his bagpipes, the haunting melody somehow audible even over the thunder of naval bombardment. The moment the ramp dropped, he charged forward, sword in hand, leading his commandos in what one witness described as the most insane display of courage I've ever seen. The Germans, already confused by the sudden assault, were utterly bewildered by the sight of a British officer wielding a medieval weapon. Churchill personally captured 42 German soldiers that day, herding them at swordpoint back to the beach for evacuation. When asked later why he brought a sword to a gunfight, Churchill replied, "In my opinion, any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed. Any officer who cannot inspire his men with a bayonet or a sword is a bloody fool." Churchill's most audacious exploit came in 1943 during the Allied invasion of Sicily. Now a lieutenant colonel commanding No. 2 Commando, he led his men in an assault on the town of Pigalle. Under heavy mortar fire, Churchill marched ahead of his troops, playing "Will Ye No Come Back Again" on his bagpipes, seemingly oblivious to the explosions around him. His second-in-command shouted over the noise, "Sir, shouldn't you take cover?" Churchill didn't break stride. "Why? It's a lovely morning for a stroll." The attack succeeded, but Churchill's luck wouldn't hold forever. In May 1944, during a raid on the island of Brač, off the Yugoslav coast, his commandos were ambushed by a superior German force. Churchill organized a fighting retreat, covering his men's withdrawal with his trademark sword and a Tommy gun. When the ammunition ran out, he continued fighting with grenades. Hours into the battle, with most of his men either dead or captured, Churchill found himself alone, still playing his bagpipes in defiance. A German grenade exploded nearby, knocking him unconscious. When he came to, he was surrounded by German soldiers, their rifles pointed at his head. One German officer, speaking in accented English, asked, "Are you the madman with the sword?" Churchill, blood streaming down his face, managed a grin. "That depends. Are you the chap I'm supposed to surrender to?" Churchill spent the next several months in a German POW camp, but captivity suited him about as well as peacetime military service had. He escaped almost immediately by crawling under barbed wire during an air raid, then walked nearly 150 miles through occupied Yugoslavia before being recaptured near the Austrian border. Deemed too dangerous for a regular camp, he was transferred to Sachsenhausen concentration camp in Germany. He escaped again in September 1944 by squeezing through a drain, but was recaptured once more. Finally, in May 1945, with Germany collapsing, the SS abandoned the camp, and Churchill was liberated by advancing American forces. His first words to his American rescuers: "I say, you chaps are a bit late." Frustrated that the war in Europe had ended before he could rejoin the fighting, Churchill immediately volunteered for Burma to continue the fight against Japan. He was en route when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, effectively ending the war. Churchill was reportedly furious. "If it wasn't for those damn Yanks," he complained, "we could have kept the war going another 10 years. After the war, Churchill's appetite for adventure remained undiminished. He qualified as a parachutist at age 43, served in Palestine during the turbulent final days of the British Mandate, and later took up surfing, becoming one of the first people to ride the tidal bore wave on the River Severn in England. He also continued playing his bagpipes, much to the consternation of his neighbors. When one complained about the noise, Churchill politely informed him that he only practiced in the mornings and evenings, the times, he noted, when most people are trying to sleep. Throughout his post-war years, Churchill maintained that his unorthodox approach to warfare had been perfectly rational. "People ask me why I carried a sword," he once said. "The truth is, in close-quarter combat, a sword is actually more practical than a rifle with a bayonet. It's lighter, faster, and doesn't require ammunition. Plus," he added with a wink, "it's far more civilized." As for the bagpipes, he had a simple explanation: "I play the bagpipes in battle for the same reason a football team has a band. It raises morale and confuses the enemy." Churchill retired from the army in 1959 with the rank of lieutenant colonel, his chest decorated with numerous medals, including the Distinguished Service Order and Bar, and the Military Cross. He spent his retirement pursuing hobbies that included building and operating radio-controlled model warships on lakes near his home. When asked in an interview late in his life what he considered his greatest accomplishment, Churchill paused thoughtfully before answering, "Survived, I suppose, and having a bloody good time while doing it." He passed away on March 8, 1996, at the age of 89, outliving most of the men who had fought alongside him and all of the enemies who had tried to kill him. Mad Jack Churchill remains one of the most eccentric and courageous soldiers in British military history. In an age of mechanized warfare, he fought with weapons from another era and somehow lived to tell the tale. His story serves as a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit, quirky, defiant, and indomitable, can shine through. Perhaps Churchill himself put it best when he said, "Any officer who goes into action without proper equipment is badly prepared. In my case, proper equipment meant a sword, a longbow, and a set of bagpipes. I never felt the need for anything more, and for Mad Jack Churchill, anything more would have been far too ordinary."